Writing it all down. Many different languages were spoken across the Roman Empire, but Latin was the main language used for trade, government, and communication. The Romans introduced writing to Northern Europe, and the Latin alphabet is still widely used today. There were only 22 letters in the alphabet. I and J and U and V were not distinguished, and V and W did not exist. Millions of texts were written, from private letters scrawled on wax tablets to elegant poems written in ink on papyrus scrolls. Books, however, were rare and expensive because they had to be copied by hand. Roman handwriting. This is a fragment of a Latin letter written in ink on a wooden tablet. It was discovered at the fort of Vindolanda near Hadrian's Wall in England. Addressed to a soldier named Lucius, it is about a welcome gift of oysters from a friend of the writer. Trajan's Column. The inscription on the base of Trajan's Column in Rome is a famous example of beautifully proportioned Roman capitals which were often painted on walls or carved into stone. Sooty ink. Soot was mixed with water to make ink. Roman numerals. Roman numerals were written as strings of symbols to be added together, with I for 1, V for 5, X for 10, C for 100, and so on. Large numbers were very clumsy and complicated. For example, 1778 in Roman numerals is MDCCLXXVIII. Waxing lyrical. Melted beeswax was poured into wooden frames to make a reusable writing surface. The number 4 can be IV or III. Roman numerals are still used on modern clocks and watches. Egyptian inkpot. This inkpot, dating to the 1st century CE, is made of faience, a glassy material. Vellum. Writers. These portraits from Pompeii show a woman with a wax tablet and a stylus and a man with a papyrus scroll. The tablet has 2 leaves that fold together to protect the writing. Inlaid inkpots. On the left is a bronze inkpot with a silver inlay and a lid to stop the ink from drying up. Below is a pair of bronze inkpots covered with black, niello, silver, or copper sulfide and inlaid with silver and gold. It is decorated with mythological scenes. Reed pen with split nib. Bronze pen. Bronze stylus from Athens. Spatula for smoothing the wax to erase writing. Iron stylus with bronze cover. Ivory stylus. Hanging inkpot. This inkpot once had cords to hang it up or to carry it. Tools. Split nib pens were used with ink to write on papyrus wood or vellum. The pointed stylus was designed for writing on wax tablets. Papyrus. Papyrus and vellum. Important documents were written on Egyptian papyrus, paper made from reeds. The finest books were written on long-lasting vellum, made from sheets of wafer-thin animal skin. Crafts and technology. The Romans were highly skilled at working in all sorts of materials, from leather, textiles, and wood to metal and glass. Pottery was a huge industry in some areas, where wine jars, page 60, and red Samian pots, page 47, were made by the million in large workshops. Other crafts were on a much smaller scale, with individual artisans working from their own shops in towns like Pompeii. Many of the potters were slaves or freedmen. Surviving names show that they and other craftsmen were almost all men. Face flask. This mass-produced flask was made by blowing a bubble of glass into a mold. Face. Teardrop-shaped decoration on beaker. Molded beaker. The mold for this glass beaker had the teardrop decoration on the inside. Glassworking. Glass has been made for centuries, but in the last century BCE, someone had discovered that it was possible to blow glass into bubbles. Soon glass was being blown into molds, allowing mass production of bottles and highly decorated flasks. Glass was no longer just a luxury, but became a widely used material. Blue-ribbed bowl. This bowl is made of expensive blue glass. It was probably made using the older technique of pressing hot glass into a mold. Portland vase. The Portland vase is one of the most precious objects to survive from Roman times. Using a highly skilled technique called cameo carving, the jeweler covered the blue glass with a layer of white glass. He then cut away the white layer to leave the elegant figures and foliage on the blue background. Glass jar. Bands of gold running through the glass. Lid of jar. Colorful glass. Some vessels like this delicate little jar and lid contain bands of colored glass and even gold. The jar was probably used for storing some expensive cosmetics. Page 18. Metalwork. Gold, silver, lead, copper, iron, and other metals were widely used by the Romans. Blacksmiths could not make furnaces hot enough to melt iron, so they hammered it into shape while it was hot. To make bronze, they mixed copper with tin. Roman bronze often had zinc in it as well, giving it a gold color. Bone working. Bone was used for making many everyday items such as knife handles, hairpins, and combs. Fresh animal bone from the butchers could be quite finely carved and was used for inlays on wooden boxes. Gaming counters and dice were also carved from bone. Page 38. Silver mirror. Mirror glass was not yet invented in Roman times, so polished metal was used instead. Bone pins. Large needles and pins were usually made from bone. Hairpins were necessary for the elaborate hairstyles worn by Roman women. Page 19. Woman's head on end of hairpin. Bone comb. The comb's teeth were cut with a very fine saw. Bone handle. Roman knives often had a carved bone handle and a hanging loop. Loop for hanging knife. Curved blade of knife. Outline of figure which was originally inlaid with gold foil. Bronze plaque. This small sheet of bronze bears a delicate gold foil inlay set into its surface. Smith's tools. These iron tongs were used to heat small metal objects in a furnace. This iron file has lost its wooden handle. Jeweler's hoard. These silver objects are part of a large hoard of jewelry, coins, and scrap silver that was buried at Sneddisham, England in the 2nd century CE. Recycling. Fragments of old jewelry were melted down to make new items. Silver ingot. Rings. There were 89 rings in the hoard, some with gems. Silver pendant for attaching to a necklace. This shaped stone found with the hoard is a polishing tool.